Hello and welcome back, everyone. Great to see some familiar names joining the third session on our ABAC Mastery class. Today, we're going to be focusing in on vertical specific demo scenarios. So, what's really exciting about this, in my mind, is authorization is not one industry. It's not about the government. It's not about healthcare. It's about every industry that's got compliance. Every industry that has to make sure that only the right user has access to the right information. So in today's session, we're going to end up going through looking at how some of the use cases that we see each of these verticals being used on a regular basis. Now, if you think back, for those of you who are just joining for the first time, or for those who are coming from the second or third time, in our first session, we went all the way back to school with our back to basics. Really what we were doing in the first session was digging into how policies can be constructed. How do we want to start with a natural language policy? Like, I want to make sure that managers only have access to secret information, that sort of thing. And how we can end up translating those policies from natural language into policies. In our second session, what we did was we actually dove into some of the tools that help simplify that entire process. So how do we take that natural language policy that a user might have and then automatically convert that into a language that the system will understand and how to build that? But today we're going to be focusing in on the verticals. So like I said, authorization isn't industry specific. There's no one tool that rules them all for each of the different verticals. Authorization is a concept. It's a framework for building the right policies, the right rules to make sure that the right person has access at the right time. I'm trying to set a record for how many times I can say right in a sentence, by the way. And when we look at the different verticals, it's not just talking about finance, healthcare, manufacturing, government. And by the way, these are just four of the big ones that we see on a regular basis. But when you break it down, there's a lot of reasons why they come to us. And there's even a lot of overlapping reasons. So things like SOX compliance or export controls affecting both manufacturing and government. You start to see a lot of these repeating themselves over and over again as we start to work with each of the different industries. Now, that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to jump right in. We're going to talk about each of these different core verticals. And joining me today is Martin Tucek, who's going to be talking about finance.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So I will be talking about a use case, particularly use case within the financial industry, so banking and finance. And I've been working with a financial organization for quite a while, and I looked at the IT environment, and I must say that maybe it's a subjective view, but when I really looked at them in detail, they operate within extremely complex IT environments. The IT teams or departments face multiple demands from multiple angles. And those angles might be, for example, meeting the needs of business operations, or supporting advanced technology. So they've got a demand to stay on top of the high tech, ensuring the seamless experiences for end users. So what that means is that they not only are looking after their employees, but they have to also pay lots of attention to their customers outside their organization. And with that, they need to also comply with the stringent regulatory requirements. And these demands quite often overlap, so they're creating additional layer of complexity. So from security perspective, IT teams are under pressure to balance these demands without slowing the pace of the business. So their role, their IT department role, is to remain dynamic, flexible, and responsive to evolving challenges. So it is a task that would be nearly impossible without attribute-based access control. So some of the use cases what I have highlighted or listed over here highlights the scenario where traditional access control methods fall short. I'm talking about, for example, role-based access control. So that's where ABAC comes in and provides a necessary agility and a precision to meet these challenges. So before we dive in to a particular use case, I would like to just paint the picture and then take you through some of these use cases, what you see here on this slide. So starting with a risk-based access, that's where that's where we have a risk as a key factor for ensuring secure access. When we're talking open banking, it's a collaborative platform where banks enable third-party to access their data and information. And they do that through exposing APIs for mobile banking and then CRM. So ABAC role in this case is to control API access based on user roles, application context, and security attributes. Open banking then opens door to innovation, so where there is a need for tailored approaches for high-value clients, so VIP banking. Beyond VIP accounts, for example, the bank then needs ensure flexibility in approvals in secure way. And this flexibility ties into a concept of granting access only when necessary, so just in time. Where time becomes the attribute which is can be easily handled by attribute-based access control. When we're talking about compliance and regulations, whilst all these operations, what I have mentioned, run smoothly, the regulatory compliance is the key driver for access control policies. So the ABAC role really is to dynamically enforce access based on user jurisdiction, so different country, data sensitivity, and compliance requirements. Finally, we've got the insurance of transparency and accountability, where we need to have a look at how ABAC supports auditing and monitoring and helps to identify who has access to what and under what conditions. So this kind of completes the journey or paints the picture of how ABAC can address the full spectrum of challenges in financial organizations, from foundational security to advanced regulatory needs. There are lots of use cases over here I have touched on, and I'm not going to go through all of them. If anybody is interested yet, that's fine. You can contact me, and we can talk about it, how ABAC will provide the benefits to your organization. But we don't have a time in this webinar to go through all of them. So I have picked one, which is the, and yes, thank you, Matt, which is the risk-based access control, or we're talking more about adapting security to context in real time. I need a little bit of water. So, as I had at the beginning, financial institutions face constant challenges. So when it comes to risk-based access, they are balancing seamless customer experiences with robust security measures, and especially when these transaction or access requests come with high risk factors. So in our scenario, the risk-based access using ABAC for a dynamic access and respond to risk indicators in real time. So let's have a look at the scenario. The customer logs into their online banking account from an unrecognized device in a foreign country and attempts high-value transfer to a foreign account. I must admit, I had to actually write it down because it is a sentence, it is a scenario full of red flags. So it's quite difficult to remember. But even if it's full of red flags, it can be a legitimate scenario. So imagine, for example, when you are interested of purchasing a property somewhere in a foreign country. And in order to put a deposit down, you go and have a look at the property. You inspect the property. You go over there, and you like the property, and you put down the deposit, and then that means high-value transaction appears. It means get executed. So, and that this type of scenario raises a potential red flags, as I said, related to both unauthorized access and a financial crime, such as fraud or money laundering. So, so we've got a scenario, we've got a big scenario over here, packed with red flags. So how do we handle this scenario with a policy? And the natural language policy would look something like deny high-value transfer from unrecognized device in foreign countries. So that's the policy. Now, you wonder, where is the ABAC? How the ABAC applies? How does it work? So let's take a closer look at ABAC in action. The system, as I said, we already established that receives the request for high-value transaction, and then it evaluates multiple attributes for logging and transaction. And those attributes are, for example, device fingerprint. Is this a recognized device? Geolocation. Is the logging coming from a high risk or unusual location? Transaction details. What is the amount? What is the currency? And what is the destination of the transfer? So we've got 3 attributes. You can use multiple attributes for handling this, for example, this scenario. You can also include user behavior. Remember from the previous webinar sessions, attribute-based access control uses attributes to describe a context. The attributes form the foundation of the policy. Policy then evaluates a request from a user or application to access certain resources or information. So you can use pretty much any information which is important for your business or your application to make a decision. So if, for example, information like, does this align with a customer typical activity, is important for you to make a decision, then user behavior becomes one of the attributes in this group. But for this scenario, I will stick to 3 attributes, which is the device fingerprint, the geolocation, and the transaction details. So based on these attributes, the ABAC engine, in this case, Axiomatics Decision Service, evaluates the risk level in real time and enforces adaptive security response. So for example, if the login or transaction deems to be low risk, then it proceeds seamlessly. If it's medium risk, the system may require or request additional verification such as MFA, multi-factor authentication. For high-risk scenarios, the system could block the transaction and alert the bank's fraud team for a manual review. So in the end, attribute-based access control provides context, self-aware decision-making process and ensures that customers can securely access their accounts and perform legitimate transaction without unnecessary friction. So it's frictionless. Potential fraud and high-risk activities are intercepted early. And of course, regulatory compliance is maintained through real-time verification and traceable audit trails. So, yeah.
All I was going to, I just wanted to highlight a couple things from this. So you did a great job, Martin, calling out sort of more of that legacy approach at the beginning. And the legacy approach, or, how authorization is typically handled through role-based access controls, it becomes very, very much a binary decision. Do I have access? Do I not have access? And if you've been granted access, there's no controls over it. There's no fine-grained controls to say, okay, well, you can transfer money, great, but can you transfer money outside of the country? Can you transfer money if you're using a new device? And what Axiomatics will do, especially with an attribute-based access control, it makes for a fine-grained decision that's no longer black and white or binary. It gives you that flexibility to, I would say, both secure the end user, secure the customer in this case, but also at the same time, you're enabling them to have the right level of security, but protect them at the same time.
I'd like to call out also something else. So in a finance use case, it's more also about the customer experience at the end, ensuring that you keep this customer experience. So what ABAC does, securing the transaction, doesn't impact the performance on the mobile application, because here, for example, it's online banking or mobile banking. On the contrary, it can really make sure that it's frictionless, it's seamless for the mobile user or the online user. So that ensure not only the bank reputation, but also make sure that you still have this customer satisfaction. This is also one of the KPIs that all financial institutions are looking at. So it's quite important to also call that out, is that it doesn't slow down your application. It doesn't create any friction with your customer experience. On the contrary, it augments it.
That's exactly right. So, so in the end, it takes under the consideration the context, as we said.
Exactly.
Attributes describe the context. You can use any attributes which are important, I repeat again, for your business to make a decision. So it is not a black and white decision anymore, particularly if you are, for example, going back to the scenario what we have described, where you are in a foreign country and you need to put a deposit for the purchase of the house. You need to make it very quickly. Imagine that suddenly, if it's black and white, it gets stopped, and then you have to wait. Now you can't make the decision. You can't make the transfer of the deposit, and then you find yourself in a situation where you might lose the house where you like, or the property you like. So when we're talking about frictionless, that's one of the most important for financial industry. User centricity, to making sure that the user has experiences, and then doesn't get stopped with unnecessary security checks. So actually, with the financial systems or online banking is very fast and friendly. And obviously, there is the third aspect when we're talking about the compliance, because if there is a need for compliance, so in making sure that you are compliant with the different regulations. I was mentioning, for example, the jurisdictions. So I'm making, let's say we are in the European Union, so people or customers in the European Union should have a different transaction policies to people or customers are from outside the European Union, so the transactions are slightly different and then the rules are different. But this can be all handled through a policy, depending on one attribute. Where you are located? Are you located within the European Union or outside the European Union? And then things like that. It can also take attributes about the credentials of the user, for example. What is their nationality? Are they European citizen or they are not European citizen? And then the policy will then execute it and then dynamically respond to the request.
And you can associate risk scores. So you can associate risk scores to that. So for example, if you have like, as you were mentioning, like an origin or a location where the transaction is created, you can associate a risk score that comes. The ABAC policy can pull the information from the information points where you store all your risk scores, for example, based on your own regulations or processes, and enrich the policy and make sure that this policy is as accurate as possible to secure your customers' accounts and financials, but also the bank, because at the end of the day, the bank is liable.
Yeah.
Just being conscious of time, Martin, was there anything else you wanted to jump into on that use case in particular?
There's lots of things I would like to say. As I said, I could talk about lots of them, but no, I'll give a room to Ariel to talk about the healthcare use case.
And just really quickly, again, echoing what you'd said at the beginning, Martin, we only really have time to go through one use case for each of these different verticals. But obviously, we're only showing one slide of many. So for anybody listening in, if you are curious about any of these particular use cases or the different ways that we can pull different attributes, like the geolocation, like the device fingerprint, the transaction amount, the risk score, quite literally, the list can go on forever. There is no limit to the number of attributes that we use. But please reach out. In this case, Martin, you put your name out. So reach out on LinkedIn, send them a note. It would be absolutely great to keep the conversation going.
Agree. I'm delighted to talk to them.
With that being said, Ariel, over to you on healthcare.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks, Matt. So I'll try to catch up with the time. So you as a timekeeper, you'll be happy, Matt. I will not go into what Martin said already. The use cases or the benefits for healthcare are similar in general for ABAC. But what we've seen with all the customers that we have in healthcare, we've identified a couple of use cases that we've listed over here. One of the main things that goes across all these use cases is consent. So in healthcare, what matters most is the patient consent. Those are sensitive data. You don't want anyone to know your cholesterol rate or your heart, how's your heart doing, or whatever else. And so this is why you have very strict regulations in place, like HIPAA in the US. And that means that not everyone is able, and I will try to compete with Matt on the number of right, the use of right in a sentence, but you don't want everyone to access those data or the sensitive data, your personal data. So what you see here on screen, a couple of use cases. The first one is relationship access. Relationship access is really about who can access my sensitive data. Is it my doctor? Is it my nurse? In which context these people can access, are authorized to access my personal data. So imagine you going to UMD. UMD, which is a specific person, can access your private data. What happens if UMD is on vacation? So that's is the replacement able to see your record if you're there to check on I don't know, fever or something else. So that's the number one. The second one is the compliance to HIPAA. So as a healthcare provider, you have the obligation to show that you're compliant, to show who is accessing what on a regular basis. So you need a way to pull this information in a very simple form to build those reports very quickly. And that's what ABAC is capable of doing, because every time you put a policy and then you have a request that comes to the decision engine product produces logs that can be then visualized with a data visualization tool, and then you can build easily reports. And if you're interested in how we monitor and how we allow auditing, you can just reach out to me or Martin, and that would be and we would be super happy to show you that. Another use case is self-service. So with COVID, we've seen a tremendous effort of digitalization of healthcare, where you can have video conference with your doctor, your specialist, your whatever, but you also are able to book online or schedule appointment online to see your medical records. So I'm based in Sweden, for example. In Sweden, you have access to your logs, so the results of your tests or your blood samples, to see your appointments and everything like that, as a user. So you want to make sure that, and I want to make sure that no one else but me or someone that I have authorized can access this information. So you might want to put some limitation onto when can you access those records. Is it from your location? Is it from a time of the day, etc. And then the last one is VIP care. We've seen so healthcare is very engaging. You have for some healthcare provider some VIP services, which means that you have an extra care. One of the things that happens there is that as a VIP, you are entitled, or you have a deal that allows you to see someone specific if there is a case of an emergency, or that is coming in, or you are hitting the ER and it's not your regular healthcare provider that is managing that because you're abroad or in another state, for example. The idea would be to make sure that on just one time or for a specific case, if this is an emergency, someone else in your regular healthcare provider can access your data. So that's what all of those use cases are about. And if we move forward, I'll go deeper into this VIP patient journey. So here, what you can see is that you have. So I think, yeah, exactly. You flipped the slide. Thanks, Matt. So as a VIP patient, you require some medical attention. So your current healthcare provider is not available on site. And when you come into the ER, you register as a VIP. There is a healthcare policy that has been implemented in the healthcare facility. For example, a VIP patient data can be accessed by all healthcare personnel if the registered healthcare provider is not available on site. So you'd have some attributes that are going to look into that, whether or not you have the VIP, whether or not you are in the right hospital or healthcare place, who is the healthcare provider, and if this person is there or not. And then you would have a dynamic, the decision engine will permit or deny the access. So in that case, it will be a permit. And all of this will be audited. So there will be logs that will allow the hospital or the healthcare provider to prove that this patient data has been accessed in the right way at the right time by the right person. So, Matt, if you want, if we can show how this translates as a policy in alpha, which is the policy language that we use at Axiomatics to easily build ABAC policies. So alpha is a policy language that is based on OASIS, which is a standard that we have that is easy for developers to consume because it's close to plain language. Yeah, so maybe you want to show that on Policy Companion. So what you see on screen is a tool that you can access on through our website on axiomatics.com. This is how Axiomatics helps you gather requirements or understand how you can build a ABAC policy, translate them, or generate policy syntax in alpha. And it also does the reverse activity, which is if you have an alpha policy that you cannot make sense of, then you can translate it back into something that is understandable and auditable by people or people that are not compliant, but not familiar with. Yeah, not familiar with.
Not developers.
Not developers, exactly.
Yes, by business people, yeah.
Yes, Matt, I'll let you
Sure.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm just gonna really quickly again touch on this this use case. It's one that I'm seeing happen more and more. It's one of those ones that just keeps popping up with healthcare facilities, and especially I would actually say that it applies to finance. It applies to the government, but in the healthcare facility, betting is everywhere. I don't know about you folks, but I turn on the radio at this point, and it feels like every second or third ad I get is talking about betting. And the reason why I'm correlating these two is if you were to think about a VIP doesn't just mean, like I know we just had the U.S. election, but from a sports side of things, or as a celebrity, but from a VIP athlete, imagine if one of the the quarterback, the starting quarterback, or the linebacker, or the striker for Man U, whatever it is, but imagine if they've gone to the hospital and they've got issues with a torn meniscus, whatever it might be. And if that information gets out to the betting people, all of a sudden there's a lot of risk in that information causing some major issues, not just from the sport itself, but from a betting side of things.
Yeah, and that's all about, and that's why you have those very restrictive regulations. It can be applied to any business. A CEO, like say tomorrow, Elon Musk's private healthcare data are coming out. That can have an impact on the stock exchange, for example. So that's a similar use case. And even as a person, you don't want anyone to know what's going on with your with your body. So that's it. Yes. So I'll let you.
So with that all that being said, so what we've done is we've effectively taken this use case and we've started with the simplified natural language version of that. A VIP patient data can be accessed by all healthcare personnel if the registered healthcare provider is not available on site. So what we can end up doing is running this natural language policy through our policy coach. And to Ariel's point, the first thing the policy coach is going to do, and if you haven't watched our second webinar, I highly recommend going back to seeing it. We really dive deep into the policy coach and the ability to convert this to policy as code.
And this requirement, just sorry to interrupt you, Matt. This part really is about also to facilitate the conversation between the business on the healthcare and the people that are going to code and implement the policies, for them to understand really the business needs. So this policy coach, if you're not really familiar with ABAC, that you are at the beginning of your ABAC strategy, this policy coach could help you bring together people under the same understanding, facilitate the requirement gathering, and define in a fine-grained way, pun intended, what are the requirements from your business, and align those requirements with the business.
So what this is, and I think if you were to think about it from a developer point of view, when the business comes and says, I want to create a new application that's going to provide XYZ or XYZ, depending on where you are, there's that person in the middle that's able to take what the business is looking for, translate it into user stories, translate it into something functional that the development team can leverage, and speak in a way that the developers can do, can convert that into an actual application. What Policy Coach is doing is it is providing, to Ariel's point, it's that person in the middle that's able to translate between the business needs and the policies in a development type language.
And to validate it afterwards. So that's really that. I think a lot of the miscommunication is that what you understand as a role or as a VAP patient is understood differently by the developers. And this middle part where you translate a policy written in plain language into a kind of a use case or a scenario or user story, that's a way really to validate that everyone is on the same page.
Yep. So in this case, all I'm doing is I'm taking what Policy Coach has come back with as far as the recommendation. It's provided things like, what's the purpose? What is this really trying to achieve? Who are we targeting? What's the actual access or action that they're trying to do? Is the effect going to be a permit deny? Who's the resource? In this case, any VIP patient data. And when will this actually take effect? So you almost look at this like it's the 5 W's, the who, what, where, when, why, and how. And it's converting that natural language policy into the required elements. And unfortunately my screen's a little bit small, but what it ends up doing for me is it then goes ahead, breaks out what are the attributes that we're going to need, and what's the actual policy as code that we want to leverage to build that out.
And so I just want to call out a couple of things here. So here we're using alpha, as I said earlier. This is the alpha language. Even as code, the alpha language allows you to understand, because it's kind of a self-explanatory. It's not as like, I'm not a coder, but you can easily understand from it. So it's for developers that are using other types of languages, whether it is Java or else. This is a language that is easy to manipulate and to work with. Yes.
Beautiful. Again, kind of being conscious of time.
Yeah, I'll let you. Yeah, we talk, and then night is coming in Sweden. So.
Yeah. All right. Beautiful. In that case, and Martin, any comments that you wanted to throw in? Otherwise, we will jump into the next vertical.
No, you covered pretty much everything.
Excellent. All right. So the next big vertical that we see on a regular basis is the manufacturing. I'm not going to bother going into each of the different talk tracks for each of these use cases, but similar to Martin, feel free. I can almost guarantee that if you're in the manufacturing vertical, you are dealing with at least one or many of these, or probably other scenarios that we don't even have up on screen. The one in particular that I am going to talk about is the export control. And the reason why I like to talk about export control is, one, it's the one that is there to protect the business, but also to protect the country itself. If those trade secrets get out into the wrong hands, it can be disastrous for the country. It can be disastrous for the military. It's not a fun situation, which is why it's also one of the compliance standards that also has the biggest teeth as far as compliance violations go. So, a really quick scenario, and I won't even really go into this one in too much detail, but just talking to some of our customers, what they often run into is a situation where information is being created, and this is information that is sensitive to either a certain project, a certain new manufacturing process, whether it's a tank, a plane, a jet, doesn't really matter, but this information is being created. They also have the situation where they need to be able to make sure that their employees are able to actually work with the information. They're able to continue pushing the business, and they're not stagnating. So how do they do that? How do they make sure that, again, only the right people have access? So one of the first things that they do is they look at, okay, well, only people who are part of the project, and only people with the right security clearance, and only the people with, in this case, U.S. citizenship, are able to get access to that information. Otherwise, you end up denying that access. So, looking at that from a natural language perspective, it really boils down again to, we need to restrict access to sensitive files to users who are part of the project with the right security clearance and have the right citizenship. Otherwise, if you try to share that information, access that information, you're going to end up getting denied access. And if we break it down further, what we can start to do is look at what are those different elements that we might want to pull into to drive that level of access. I am a simple person, though. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to, again, bring this back into my helpful tool and run this through my policy coach. Because what the policy coach is, again, going to do for me is it's going to help me understand and convert that natural language into the elements that are needed to build these policies. I won't go into too much detail. Just again, we're running low on time, and I think the next scenario is actually the one that I find really exciting for Policy Companion. What I will do, though, is I will plug our Policy Companion again. For anybody who is watching this, again, keep in mind, if you go to our Axiomatics website, this is available to anybody. So just simply look for Policy Companion on our website. What that'll do is it's going to bring you to information about our guide to authorization. And if you scroll down, you can actually take it for a spin, try it out. In here, once you provide your email address and agree to the terms, of course, it'll actually log you in right away. This is all available online, nothing to download. The sign up takes quite literally the time it takes you to put in your email address, and you'll have access. So highly recommend if you're looking to get started, break down some of your policies. It is a great tool for that. All right.
Matt,
Martin.
just very quickly over here, I will mention one thing. No. When you go back to the webinar.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So in my scenario, Ariel's and over here, you can see that we're working with attributes, and ABAC is based on our policies. So as I said before, the attributes form the foundation of the policy. So it's a very easy way how to manage a complex situation, complex scenarios. Now, I mentioned one thing, which is some of you might have objected and said, well, but we already do that. For example, like the export control. Yes, you can achieve that, for example, with the role-based access control, but what you're really facing is something which calls roles explosion. We can have a different webinar just based on this topic, because it is quite a large topic. But pretty much imagine the difference between ABAC and a role-based access control. The explosion comes in that, to explain it in simple terms, you've got every single attribute. You will have to create a different role. So let's say I had, in my use case, I had 3 attributes. I would have to create 3 roles over there. And here I am, I've got one policy, which actually have those attributes in one policy and handles every combination of those 3 attributes, whether they are true or whether they are not. They don't have to be black and white. They can be, as we have demonstrated, they can be gray. So we can have different thresholds and things like that. So, and we can keep adding when we need to. So, and still you have one policy. Whereas if you're using role-based access control, you will have to add more and more roles into your IAM, the identity and access management architecture. That's just on the side.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's well said, Martin. And the accumulation of all of this is what creates business efficiency, because then you have systems that are running faster. It's lighter. It's not about the elegance of the code. It's really about how can you make it for the engine to decide it's going faster. This is one part as well. And that our customers are seeing on a regular basis. It's like it can help them save money, save cost when it comes to their infrastructure.
Okay, Matt, over to you. I'm watching the time.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yep. Thank you.
I have 12 minutes, Matt.
12 minutes.
Are you going to manage?
I think I'll make it. All right. So I saved one of my favorites for the end. You're probably thinking, first off, there's nothing fun or exciting about the government, but there is. They handle a ton of information. And one of the use cases that comes up very, very regularly, especially in the government, is relationship-based access. And again, this can actually be applied to the healthcare facilities. It can be applied to the finance industry. And what relationship-based access means is I want to make sure that if I have a family member who works in the government, or works at the same bank that I do my banking with, or works at the hospital that I am a patient of, I want to make sure that those family members can't log in, can't access my personal information, and have those details behind the scenes. It can make for some awkward conversations, especially at the dinner table or family gatherings. It's not something that I really need. So in this use case, the way it works is if a government representative, somebody who's maybe working the phones, working with citizen data, if that user logs into their tool, And if they tried to access that family member's relationship data, the policy then is able to come in, take a look at who that user is. Do they have a relationship with that individual? If they do have a relationship, deny them access right away. And not only are we looking to just simply either permit or deny, we also want to be able to come in and be able to audit to make sure, again, only those right people have access to information, and that they haven't been accessing information that they shouldn't. So it's not just about just-in-time access or making sure that you have access at the right time and place. We want to make sure that in the past you haven't been accessing the wrong information, which is why the auditing and compliance becomes so important. But what I did say is I find that this is a really interesting use case for our policy companion. So if we look at it, we've got a use case of government representatives can access citizen data only once the citizen has granted access. So really what we're saying is, as a government representative, I shouldn't be able to log into the tools that I have access to and be able to access every citizen's data. What should happen is, as I call up that government representative, I, as the citizen, am authorizing my data to be accessed by the government representative. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is, if I just happen to call my brother John, and he picks up the phone and tries to access my information, because there's a relationship, he'll get denied access to my information. So what does that really look like? If I come in and analyze this information, if I break that out, as soon as I do that, it's going to end up coming back with not just one policy, but it's actually going to highlight that there's two policies to drive this behavior. The first is, again, government representatives, if they access citizen data and the citizen has granted that individual access, they're going to be permitted. But then we also have that deny use case that says, if there's a relationship, deny them access. And if I copy that back, and if I generate the alpha, it's going to end up coming back with a little bit longer set of policies to drive that. And by longer, I mean maybe about 2 or 3 lines longer. Ariel brought up something, though, that I thought was actually a really great topic, which is, it's not just about being able to take the natural language and convert that. The other side of it is taking the policy that's been created. And if I think, fast forward 6 months to a year later, I've got a series of policies, and as a business user, I might not know all of the different use cases. So what I can do is I can actually come in, take the policies that have been created, and if I want to interpret them, what's going to end up happening is, and I've never gone directly from one to the next, so this could be interesting. But yeah, this is great. What it's going to end up doing is it's going to take the entire policy stack, and this could be 2 policies long, or it could be hundreds of policies long. And it's going to start by giving me a summary as far as what is actually happening with this use case, and start to break it down further and further with the different elements within the use case.
And this is an interesting scenario, especially when you have changes in your teams or new changes in the business. If you want to validate or understand what has been done so far, why you've built those policies, and if you want to re-engage with the business or any other people to kind of revalidate that. So that's we know that teams are not static. It's a dynamic environment. People are coming and going. So you really need to be able to have this translator. I would say this business translator between those in charge of the IAM and building the policies directly into the application, and those who are actually looking at that are outwards going, looking for customers, citizens, patient, whatever, and making sure that as they own they're liable of the application's behavior, that what they've put as a requirement for the application is covered by the policy. So it's a good translator. It's a good translator for to engage in the conversations.
Yeah, the one topic that I often bring up when it comes to the translator is, and this doesn't happen as much as it used to, but in the past, developers would often create backdoors within the applications that they'd created. And a backdoor is simply a set of authorizations that they've included as part of the policies to give them elevated privileges. There's some great stories in the past. In fact, great stories in the past of individuals who have actually bankrupted companies by doing wrongful trading. There's actually been movies on this, but what you can use the translator for is, I'm not a developer, but if I'm able to take the policies that have been written, and I can identify really quickly that there's a policy in here that says grant Bob elevated access, well, that gives me the information I need to shut that down really quickly.
Exactly. So it facilitates the collaboration within different teams, which sometimes are not talking to each other, and it facilitates the conversation. So let's say it's a conversation breaker. So
it helps developers to communicate with the business stakeholders. That's definitely so, and vice versa, business stakeholders to articulate what they actually mean in terms of developers' language, so they can take that plain language policy, what we have just demonstrated, and trying to explain in terms of, okay, so this is the what is the action and what is the attributes, and so on and so on. So the communication goes much faster, and then there are no Chinese walls between those two groups, because quite often there was difficult to communicate and collaborate between business and technical teams. So it is definitely helping them to continue their business and improve their quality of their applications when it comes to access control.
Perfect. That was well said. So, Matt, are you the one doing the closing?
I will shut her down. So obviously,
2 minutes.
There are a whole lot more scenarios that we can go through. If you take anything away from this, one thing that I hope you take away is that, again, authorization, it applies to everybody. If you're trying to restrict access, and restrict access sounds harsh. If you're trying to enable your users,
yes, I was going to say,
by having only the right level of access at the right time, you need to improve your authorization game. So authorization, it applies to everybody. The use cases, there is quite a lot of overlap between the use cases between one vertical to the next. We've seen it all. We've obviously been doing this for coming up on 20 years at this point. So if you are questioning whether or not you've got your policies set up correctly, whether the policies are having the right effect, start the conversation. That's about all I can ask. with that being said, I thank everyone again for taking the time to listen in, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Ariel.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.